Gennady Golovkin gives his thoughts on the Anthony Joshua performance and almost makes an eerie insinuation. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Make sure you smash the like button. Also subscribe to the channel. Let's get into it. Listen, there's interview with Gennady Golovkin, and he said some really interesting things. Link in the description. Triple G suggests drug testing procedures hindered Anthony Joshua's performance against Andy Ruiz Jr. Now, keep this in mind. He didn't actually, point the finger and say, Anthony Joshua, but you did this. He didn't do that. However, I'll read the quote and then you guys interpret it. They were asking him what he thought of, Andy Ruiz Jr. knocking out former unified champion. Says Triple G talks Anthony Joshua versus Andy Ruiz. Former WBA Super, WBC, and IBO champ Golovkin told reporters that, quote, different drug testing procedures in the United States have played a role in Joshua's loss. And here's the link, another link to it. Quote, you can look at various elements, various links, so to speak, in this chain. First of all, it was his first fight in the U.S. It was his first fight at Madison Square Garden. First fight with different doping test procedures. It will probably be a big reason, an important lesson for Joshua to learn. And also, I know Andy Ruiz. I trained together with him, so I'm not surprised about the outcome of this fight. Golovkin went on to say Joshua's efforts left a lot to be desired. He said it's difficult to say what exactly happened because I'm not part of Joshua's team. What I can say is he looked terrible in this fight. Joshua did. Looking at it impartially and objectively, Joshua was terrible. It was a terrible day. Ruiz was great. It was his great day. That's how you could judge this. Triple G's fighting Steve Rolls this weekend. Now, at first, I did a video earlier this morning, and we'll revisit it. Shout out to World Boxing News. I did this video. A lot of you guys commented on it. And you have heavyweight Dillian White. He labels Anthony Joshua a drugs cheat in an astonishing rant. That's what the title is, and it has all the quotes. It says, Joshua, he talked to his coach like, why do I feel like this? Dillian White says, it's because you're in America with the VADA testing and you're not on the juice. That's why, explains Dillian White. It's harder to get therapeutic use exemptions twos there than it is in the UK. And that's why. He says Joshua's performance versus Ruiz, Joshua seemed scared, not bothered. He was running. He was jabbing out of range. He was retreating. He had his left hand down. When he got hurt, he didn't know whether to hold or tie up. He seemed like he wasn't bothered, like he didn't want to be there. Maybe he couldn't deal with the pressure anymore. Right? So I did the video earlier, and I didn't really say too much. I just, read what Dillian White said and gave his perspective. But now when I'm thinking about it, and like, he just said almost verbatim what Golovkin said. He said he looked bad, looked like he didn't want to be there. Won't, won't, won't. This is what Golovkin said. And he says, this is Golovkin now. It was his first fight at Madison Square Garden, first fight with different doping test procedures. It'll probably be a big lesson. First fight in the U.S. And then you go back to Dillian White. He says he talked to his coach. Why does it feel like this? Just interesting. It's interesting because on one angle, you could say, oh, Dillian White hates him, bad blood since the amateurs. So he's just, hates Joshua. So he's trash talking, Gerald Miller has said the same thing. He says, oh, it's the twos. Joshua's is on twos and he's getting exemptions. I know a lot of bodybuilders, and he said all this at the press conference. He said, I know bodybuilders that couldn't gain 20 pounds in a year, but Joshua did. He said, that's because I know about him, blah, blah, blah. But then when Gerald Big Baby Miller fucked up himself and he had his own PED cocktail in his system and he failed multiple drug tests, people just said, oh yeah, fuck that. see, it takes one to know one, and they dismissed it. But it's real interesting times right now for Matchroom. I don't know what people are doing, so this is, I'm not accusing anyone, but it's weird that you have all Matchroom / DAZN fighters, and they keep saying almost the same thing. Gerald Miller's talking about twos and testosterone, basically TRT, testosterone level and replacement. You have Dillian White says, he looked at his corner and says, why do I feel like this? And then Dillian White saying, you feel like this because you're in America and it's harder to get that shit. Then you have Golovkin out of nowhere. And I just feel like, just looking at what Golovkin said, and now this could just be all three of them speculating, but it's weird that you have 3 DAZN fighters / Matchroom fighters, and they're all saying it. Cause like, even if you relegate, Gerald Miller and Dillian White to, they're just hating on AJ, because that's what people like to say. Then Golovkin, he's a middleweight. He's not even in the same division. He really doesn't have, from what I see, a reason to hate on AJ. It's not like he's linked to fight AJ or anything. So I just found out it's weird that people are suggesting this about him. He said you could look at various elements, various links, so to speak, in this chain. First of all, it was his first fight in the U.S. It was his first fight at Madison Square Garden, and his first fight with different doping test procedures. Like he just really randomly slipped that in. You know what I'm saying? Like that was real random to have just said that. So even though Golovkin didn't technically, you know what dry snitching is, even though he didn't technically say, oh yeah, Joshua's on something, it's like, why would you say that? If you're, let's say, your coworker talks to your wife or some shit, and then she was like, oh, do you know where Ego's at? And he's like, oh, you might want to check the mall, or, maybe check Stephanie's house. My coworker Stephanie, you might want to, talk to her or go to her house. You didn't actually say, oh, he's with Stephanie, but it, it's like I said, dry snitching. You might want to talk to her because, I don't know where he's at, but maybe check Stephanie's house, or if there's a shooting on your street or something, and the cops are like, who did it? And you're like, oh, I don't know. If I were you, I'd maybe check the house on the corner, check the red house. I don't know who did it though. You know what I'm saying? Dry snitch. So that's what it seems like. Because it was he just really just threw that in there. He's breaking down the performance. He said you can look at various elements, various links, so to speak, in the chain. First of all, it's his first fight in the U.S. First fight at Madison Square Garden. Cool. All the way up to here is cool. Then he said first fight with different doping test procedures. So this is basically him insinuating something. I don't know any other way. Like I don't know any other way to interpret that, because he's basically somehow correlating the poor performance, because he later says, oh, Joshua looked terrible. That's what I do know. He looked terrible. I don't know what he's doing in camp, but all I know is Joshua was terrible. So he's basically relegating a terrible performance to some of those various things. He said, oh, first fight in Madison Square, first fight in the States. Oh yeah, and it's also his first fight with different doping test procedures. And Triple G is an Olympic gold medalist, so he's traveled the world as far as boxing is considered. We know that. And before he got with Tom Loeffler, he used to do a lot of fighting in Germany. So, I don't know. They really should consider this whole rematch. They should reconsider it, because I'm not the judge, jury, and the executioner. If people are doing stuff, what's done in the dark comes to light. Me, it's not my style to, I'm not going to just sit up here and say a bunch of speculation that I can't prove, but these other fighters are saying it. So that's not a good look. What I will say is this: Andy Ruiz is in the driver's seat. Al Heyman and PBC, they're in the driver's seat. Andy Ruiz with 3 different fighters that have nothing to do with each other necessarily, all saying this and all like kind of saying these weird, eerie speculations. Andy Ruiz, who's now in the driver's seat, needs to absolutely make sure everything's on the up and up. as far as Andy Ruiz, if he beats Joshua again and were to fight Wilder, he doesn't have to worry because Wilder's the WBC champion and they already have the clean boxing program. But if they are going to fight again, no matter who Andy Ruiz Jr. fights, they need stringent drug testing on anybody. I'm feeling like Breadman and J-Rock, they put out a tweet and he said, we're down to scrap, down to fight with everybody, but we need extensive drug testing for any challenger, and I think we should start pushing for that in boxing. Like I said, I'm not going to do a bunch of speculation on what it is and what it isn't, but like I said, there are fighters who are speculating that, and the performance was not good. So with those things lingering, I think it makes more sense to not push for the immediate rematch for Joshua's sake, because this is it. This is it. Joshua was considered to be the $50 million man and he could make all this great money, 50% pay-per-view. If he goes and loses to Ruiz, it's a wrap. It's a wrap for that, because that's going to be even more detrimental. Like Juanma Lopez getting stopped twice by Orlando Salido or, David Price. So, I'm definitely going to keep up with the negotiations of this. Bob Arum did an interview also with World Boxing News. I talked about that. And he said he's amazed that there's an immediate rematch. Joshua's team should really take their time to determine, because there's 3 different fighters who have all accused him of some form of testosterone, or testosterone's hard to get in America, or doping tests somehow, influence his performance, right? You got that. You have the performance itself, which is self-explanatory. You have a newfound guy who's loving the attention and, what is brought to his family and getting to eat extra Snickers, right? So you have a more confident Andy Ruiz with the full camp. That's something. Then on top of that, you also have things like, where's the fight going to take place? Is it in the contract that he has to fight in the UK? It's a lot of pressure if he has to come back to America, because it seemed, he denied it, but it seemed like he had a panic attack, which could be the reason for him playing basketball in New York and staying in New York to show people he's good and saying, hey, you guys know me. I didn't have a panic attack. Seems forced. There's rumors that Joey Dwecko or whoever dropped him hard, stopped him, concussed him. He was concussed after the fight. There's these different rumors forming and circulating. And because of Rematch Room is trying to get the power back and get them belts back, they're going to put him right back into, a do or die fight. That's crazy. You hear it. I'm telling you. There's just look. This is Arum. He said what it takes now is really serious. This is Arum. Really serious boxing people to build Joshua up again. Not rush him into an immediate rematch with Ruiz where the same thing may happen before you are able to rehabilitate the guy. Amir Khan said the same thing, and he knows about getting knocked out. I mean, that sounded kind of crazy. Not like that, but you get what I'm saying. He's been knocked out to the point where that did sound kind of crazy. I'm just speaking the truth, man. I'm speaking from the heart, bro. Amir Khan has been knocked out before. So he's a British Olympian. He's been knocked out and he's bounced back to a degree, depending on what knockout we're talking about. He has an upcoming fight and he just said the same thing. I'm telling you, this is all in, all chips, all bets are off type of, no holds bars fight. Joshua must win this. There's just too much going on. Amir Khan, like I said, he's been stopped before and he needed to rebuild. Danny Garcia knocked him out. He didn't just go after Keith Thurman or Errol Spence or fight Bud right after that or Canelo. He fought a 135-pounder who was undefeated, moved him up to 140 to get his bearings back. They are putting Joshua right back into the mix because they realized they fudged up and gave power to Al Heyman and the PBC and Team Ruiz, and now they're like, fuck. So it's really, to me, the fact, it's not just that they're taking the rematch, it's that they announced it 2 days after the fight. It's a sign of desperation. Eddie Hearn is sweating bullets, in my opinion. If I had to, from my guesstimation, I would say he's sweating bullets right now because he realizes what has happened. You know, he could have just put Joshua in his American. What would you rather have? Put Joshua in with the cupcake and then he just knocks him out in America and then you go back, or put him in with Andy Ruiz, you know, who people don't feel looks the part. He looks like, you know, and then now you made him an overnight celebrity and La Raza is happy, and, you know, the president of Mexico's hitting him up and Snickers is hitting him up. He's on Jimmy Kimmel. He's probably going to be on Ellen DeGeneres. You know, they just made this man, they just birthed the star, celebrity overnight. So this was an amazing performance by Andy Ruiz and an incredible Cinderella Man upset story and a plan that has backfired from Team Joshua, because they were better off just putting Joshua in with all these last minute changes. You know, Gerald, this could explain why the dad was angry, you know, after the fight and, you know, pointing and angry at Eddie Hearn, because if he did have issues in sparring or a tough camp, they should have just put him in with somebody light, but they knew the reception would be bad for that. But you gotta pick your poison. Would you rather have a bad reception because Joshua's fighting someone last minute? Because the Gerald Miller fell in the drug test thing, Joshua couldn't control that. You know, he couldn't control that. So whether it did good ratings on DAZN or not, I'd rather take that L than what's actually happened. Having a Matchroom card where people say Joshua was exposed. People say Katie Taylor was exposed. People say that Josh Kelly was exposed. Tommy Coyle gets knocked out. Bro, Joshua is the biggest star. And then now you have, you know, big names and, you know, once beaten or undefeated guys like Gerald Miller and Dillian White and Triple G, and they're all accusing him or insinuating or suggesting or hinting that, you know, he's on testosterone and stuff, and we really haven't heard an answer for Joshua. So, you know, with all this stuff surrounding it and what happened and the way Joshua's acting, like he's doing damage control. No, I didn't have a panic attack. I don't think they should put him in there with that. But like I said, it's do or die for them. They know how much power they lost. And despite Aram, despite me and Amir Khan all saying that, hey, I wouldn't put it in the rematch, they'll probably do it, you know. They'll probably end up doing it. But Joshua's trying to look happy and stuff like that. It just doesn't look real, you know. And you can't lie to yourself. Whatever happened with Joey Dweco and everybody in camp or whatever, if something did happen, he knows that. If he was on something, you know, and then he felt different psychologically, that's going to mess him up. Because I know dudes that have taken steroids, not necessarily in competition, really for like bodybuilding. I know bodybuilders that have taken steroids. Me personally, I know them. And the thing is, some of them, because it has health risks and whatnot, some of them have tried to dead it after using steroids for like multiple years and having all these gains and, you know, going from a shrimp to Bane and shit. And then when they try to, you know, let me slow down, I don't want to enlarge my heart, my organs, blah, blah, blah. They try to get off, and then it almost drives them into like a depression, or at least the guy that I know and like the people I've talked to, because now you can't hit the same max on the bench, you know. Now you're getting tired. You know, you're going back to a regular, it's like a werewolf transforming back to his human form, or the Hulk transforming back to Bruce Banner. You know what I'm saying? So that's why it doesn't make sense for people to cheat, because in your mind, you know, you know what's going on. And with these new testing and stuff, that becomes harder. And psychologically, if you've been on something and then, you know, you're put in a situation where you can't be on, then now you're forced to get the job done, and you feel tired now, or you feel like you can't hit the same weight, or what, you know, whatever the situation is. So that's the downside of using an unnatural aid, if you will, something that unnaturally aids your progress, is when you can't have it or can't use it, then you're forced to deal without it. Like, I don't have an addiction to caffeine, but I like my coffee, you know? So if you're like half tired and every day you're drinking coffee, and then you're super tired and then you just go cold turkey, you know, how are you gonna get your work done? Or are you gonna just be like, man, I'm sluggish, you know? So steroids has that same type of effect. Anything that your body needs, like even drugs, cocaine and different stuff like that, addictive drugs, crystal meth, your body can have withdrawals and adverse effects and especially psychological, and boxing is 95% mental. So that's my thoughts. I'm not accusing anyone of anything because I like to have facts, because other than that, it's just a pointless, it's just me speculating like anybody else. But it's weird that Golovkin and all these people keep saying that. So if I was Andy Ruiz, just to be on the up and up with whoever you fight in the heavyweight division, that should be a given. They definitely need to do this stringent testing. Just like Floyd said, he said, I just want to be on the even playing field. And this doesn't necessarily mean this, because I actually studied in that field. Like, I was really interested, done a lot of reading on fitness and bodybuilding. But Andy Ruiz doesn't typically even look like the type that would use, like, at least anabolic steroids, just from his body type, because he would actually probably get to shed even more pounds because he'd be able to do more and go longer, with conditioning and cardio. So I don't think we have to worry about that. But, that's just a little bit of my 2 cents. Joshua, he should really consider this rematch, period. He should really consider it because there's just a lot of shit going on. Let me know what you guys think of Golovkin, Dillian White, and Gerald Miller's comments. We working. So if you enjoyed this video and want more content like this on the channel, you can show your appreciation by going to the PayPal donate button or the YouTube support button, and you can donate any amount that you feel is equivalent to the value of this video. Much more to come. Thank you guys for your support. Boxing Ego, the future of boxing.